What's up, everyone? Welcome to the channel, and today I'm going to be talking about Sean Strickland versus Dricus Du Plessis and how I think Sean Strickland can beat Dricus Du Plessis. I'm going to mention the various factors that I like on the Sean Strickland side and how I would game plan if I were Sean Strickland. I want to make it very clear that this is not my official prediction video. That will be coming out tomorrow, but in this video I'm kind of here to argue for the side of Sean Strickland rather than to give you my official prediction and how I think the fight will play out. Starting out with breaking down their styles. Sean Strickland is a striker with very solid cardio. He's got a very high output, and you can see him resorting to his jab, rear straight, and teep to the body very often. He's very good at using these tools to keep his opponents at range and pressuring forward, and that's where he seems to find the most success, when he is pressuring forward on his opponents and putting them on the back foot. His defensive skills are very solid, and we saw this on full display in his most recent performance against Israel Adesanya at UFC 293, where he won the middleweight title on short notice. I was super impressed by this. I did not really see it coming, but props to Sean Strickland. He showed massive improvements in his defensive game, in my opinion. That will be very interesting to see how he matches up against Dricus Du Plessis, who is almost all offense on the feet. Dricus Du Plessis doesn't have the greatest striking defense. He's got great power, and he's going to move forward and try to pressure Sean Strickland. That's what's so interesting about this fight. It's who is going to be able to pressure, and is someone going to be able to pressure for the full time, or are we going to kind of see Dricus Du Plessis explode with his famous Dricus Blitz, go out there with his long combinations, and then we see him miss with it, potentially Sean Strickland turn the fight around, and then boom, now he's pressuring for it. Are we going to see kind of one of those scenarios where Sean Strickland's pressuring, then he's put on the back foot, or is it going to be Sean Strickland pressuring the whole time? Dricus Du Plessis pressuring the whole time? Is someone going to be off the back foot the whole time? That's very interesting to me, but Sean Strickland, I think, can find success with the jab. When it comes to his wrestling and his grappling, it's a little bit of a gray area. We haven't really seen his grappling tested against a very solid grappler, and he's talked about it a lot, and a lot of people within his camp. Eric Nixick, his coach, Chris Curtis. I can't remember many other interviews. I think Roman Dolidze vouched for it. I just heard Michael Bisping talking about it in his fight with Uriah Hall. He was commentating it, talking about how Sean Strickland has very high-level jiu-jitsu. Well, when it comes down to it, I think Dricus Du Plessis can take down Sean Strickland. Dricus Du Plessis has so much power on the feet and so much for Sean Strickland to worry about on the feet. I can see Dricus Du Plessis finding the takedowns. Dricus Du Plessis was able to take down Robert Whittaker because of this, and he landed some very solid ground and pound against Robert Whittaker. Dricus is pretty well-rounded. Granted, like I said, he is very hittable, and when it comes to the feet, he's going to look a little bit sloppy. He's not going to look like the most technical fighter, and Sean Strickland might be more technical, but he is not as physically imposing as Dricus Du Plessis. Sean Strickland doesn't have the greatest power. And he has been knocked out before, but I think his chin is very underrated, and I will get to that later. But I do think Dricus Du Plessis has the tools to knock out Sean Strickland. If I end up picking Dricus Du Plessis, I'm more than likely going to pick him by KO, but Sean Strickland has the better cardio here. With that being said, Dricus Du Plessis doesn't have the worst cardio. I think it might be a little bit underrated against Brad Tavares, who was Sean Strickland's teammate, actually still is Sean Strickland's teammate, and we had Sean Strickland's coach coaching Brad Tavares in that matchup, so this isn't Sean Strickland's coach's first time going up against Dricus Du Plessis. That's something interesting to note. But I wanted to get back to the grappling. We've seen Sean Strickland take down Nasruddin Imavov, Uriah Hall multiple times. And recently we actually did see him get taken down by Abus Magomedov. And Abus Magomedov was able to find his back, but he was able to break the grip and was able to get it back up to the feet. I think Sean Strickland has a very solid ability to get it back up to the feet. Another example was against Jack Hermanson. Jack Hermanson didn't get the takedown. He actually failed the takedown. But Sean Strickland, when he was separating, he kind of stuffed the takedown, turned his back a little bit, and Jack Hermanson was able to take his back. And then from there, Sean Strickland broke the grip very easily. It was standing. Jack Hermanson never got the takedown, but it is something to note that he does have kind of a bad habit of turning his back to really try and separate the grip. Anyways, I think his grappling is going to be solid enough to stay out of the submissions from Dricus Du Plessis. Although Dricus has nice submissions. I think he has 9 to 10 submissions so far throughout his career. Professionally, obviously in the amateurs, he probably has some other submission wins. But Dricus has nice submissions. He's got solid wrestling, and he's got solid power on the feet. I've mentioned that multiple times now. But I think Sean Strickland's chin is underrated. This is what I wanted to get at throughout this video. People look at the Alex Pereira fight, and they look at him getting flatlined. They called him dumb for it. Fair enough. Alex Pereira set it up perfectly. When you look at the way Alex Pereira technically set up that KO, I don't think Dricus Du Plessis has that ability. And even then, Sean Strickland has made massive improvements since that fight, as shown even in the Jared Cannonier fight. A little bit in the Imavov fight, not so much in the Magomedov fight, but he did take that one on short notice as well. Actually, that wasn't on short notice. The Imavov fight was on short notice. But Sean Strickland ended up surviving. Wasn't caught with anything too clean that ended up rocking him or anything like that. And when it came to the Israel Adesanya fight, he did so damn well when he was able to pressure. Now, the thing is, Abus Magomedov was able to put Sean Strickland on the back foot. But that's when Abus Magomedov was working the teep to the body nonstop. And the teep to the body is something that can work very well against Sean Strickland, but I don't think Dricus Du Plessis is going to want to do that, because Dricus Du Plessis, if he's going to find the knockout, it's going to be in the close quarters exchanges, when he's brawling with Sean Strickland, when he is closing the distance, when he's throwing his long, strung-out combinations. But in a technical fight, I think Sean Strickland will win if Dricus Du Plessis is just going for, 1 to 2 punch combinations, similarly to how we saw Jared Cannonier do that. I think when I saw Jared Cannonier fighting Sean Strickland, I was a little bit, questionable. I was questioning his game plan, because when Jared Cannonier was having the most success, he was going forward with longer combinations, 2, 3, 4 punch combinations. That's when he was landing the biggest shots in that fight. And I wish he would have gone to it more if he wanted to, potentially find the knockout or find the bigger shots than he did in that fight. And I think Dricus Du Plessis will go forward with 3 to 4, 5 punch combinations, swinging wild hooks. Dricus Du Plessis, if you haven't watched his fights, swings almost every strike with 100% power. And that's why I think his cardio is underrated, because he went 3 hard rounds with Brad Tavares, landing a lot of shots in round 3 against Brad Tavares. And they still have some pop on it, but he does definitely physically fatigue. Strickland clearly has a better cardio. The question is, can he survive the early rounds? And does he win one of the first 3 rounds? Because I think there is a world where Dricus Du Plessis goes out there, pushes an insane pace for 3 rounds and starts to gas, but can hold on to the lead and essentially win or lose rounds 4 and 5, but win on the scorecards. I think that is possible. I don't think a lot of people are really ruling that in the realm of possibility, but I'm not sold that Sean Strickland can get one of the first 3 rounds. Now, I'm not saying that's out of the realm of possibility either. I do think Sean Strickland probably would be able to find one of the first 3 rounds, especially if it does go 5 rounds, because Dricus may even look to kind of tone his cardio back. But when I've seen Dricus Du Plessis in interviews throughout this entire week, in the embedded, in the countdown, the dude is saying, I'm going to TKO him. You won't see my championship rounds of cardio. It won't even matter. Do I think he's got 5 rounds of cardio? 5 rounds of Dricus cardio, I should say. No. I do think he's got 3 solid rounds of cardio at least. He did get a nose fixture, so that will be very interesting to see. But yeah, there was somewhere where I was going with this. But yeah, I think Sean Strickland could potentially overwhelm him with this cardio later. I think if Dricus Du Plessis works in the takedowns and really goes with a grapple-heavy game plan, that could end up gassing out Dricus Du Plessis. Because when we have seen Dricus Du Plessis look the most fatigued, look the most sloppy, it was in his performances against Darren Till and Derek Brunson. And I don't want to see him. If I'm on the Dricus Du Plessis side, if I'm coaching him, I'm saying, hey, look, if you shoot a takedown and you get it, don't go for any high energy movements. If you're not very confident that you can't finish the fight, don't do what you did against Darren Till, where you're landing 100 shots on Darren Till's head and he didn't finish him. And then in round 2, he's looking a little bit more sluggish, looking less technical, a little bit easier to figure out, not as quick as he was before. Now, granted, when he's tired, this dude dogs his way through it. We saw Pantoja, Jail Almeida, even these guys that get gas, they're still able to drive through, and that's what Dricus Du Plessis does, and he has a very solid chin, so that's why I see it pretty hard for Sean Strickland to be able to knock him out. He's only been knocked out 1 time in his career against Roberto Soldic. Anyways, what I like from Sean Strickland, why I think his chin's underrated, I think that's where I was going at with this. He's only been knocked out by Alex Pereira's left hook, the same left hook that knocked out Donegi Abena in kickboxing. Donegi Abena is a guy that's only been knocked out once in his career by Alex Pereira, and that was with the bigger gloves. This was MMA in the middleweight division. Donegi Abena is now the current light heavyweight champ at Glory Kickboxing. And Yuri Prochazka got knocked out by the same left hook. Maybe not flatline. Donegi Abena was flatline with the bigger gloves, and that obviously hinders Pereira's power. Yuri Prochazka dropped by the same shot, eventually led to him getting knocked out at UFC 295, right? That's the shot that Sean Strickland's getting knocked out to. The other time he got knocked out in his career was against Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos. It was a wheel kick to the temple. Super powerful shot. And this was when he was at the welterweight division. But he's been able to take some pretty solid shots throughout his career, even against Jared Cannonier. I know Jared Cannonier didn't land his most powerful punch. Maybe he wasn't sitting down on his punches as hard as Dricus Du Plessis was going to do. But Sean Strickland dealt with it fine. There were shots that Nasruddin Imavov landed, some left hooks, a couple of hooks within the exchanges that were pretty hard on Sean Strickland, that Sean Strickland ate with no problem at all. Brendan Allen even landed a couple of shots. And when I'm saying a couple of shots, that's me nitpicking because they're not landing super clean. It's really hard to touch Sean Strickland very clean, and that's why it is very hard on the Dricus Du Plessis side to go out there and just rely on him to find the knockout early. I'm not saying that he can't do it, and you'll see my prediction tomorrow. I think I have a pretty solid read on this. I've done a lot of research. Anyways, I'll stop ranting into it. But I think it will be very hard for Dricus Du Plessis to land shots on Sean Strickland's chin. And if it happens, it's going to be because he's following through with his combinations. When I look at Sean Strickland's striking defense, it does seem pretty, I don't want to say interesting, because sometimes he'll throw his hands out there to kind of stop his opponents, or he'll put his head in kind of an unorthodox position, put it off the center line, whereas if a Dricus Du Plessis is going with the 4 to 5 punch combination, he rips down to the body a couple times, which I do think is a weakness for Sean Strickland, because he stands so straight up, and he has that Philly shell. I think if Dricus Du Plessis rips to the body, he could potentially drop Sean Strickland's hands. And we have seen Sean Strickland drop his hands to the left hook multiple times against Alex Pereira. There was a footage of him training where he did the exact same thing. But his chin is tucked a lot of the time, outside of that one time where he tries to parry a little bit too much. And sometimes that can lead to Sean Strickland's demise, where he's, parrying at everything. But Dricus Du Plessis isn't really the guy that's feinting too much. I mean, he does, absolutely, but he doesn't do it all that often. Dricus Du Plessis has some nice low kicks, but Sean Strickland was able to check a lot of the low kicks from Israel Adesanya in their recent performance. So, when you look at these shots that land on Sean Strickland's chin, I know if I go all over the place, I'm sorry, just the way that I talk, I'm not going to apologize for it. But yeah, that's how it happens, right? Sean Strickland got knocked out by Alex Pereira's left hook. He got knocked out by Elizeu Zaleski's wheel kick. And I'll get to the Kamaru Usman performance in just 1 second. But even then, he's not flatlined. He's still in there. It took a couple of follow-up shots to pull them off of Sean Strickland. When I say them, I mean his opponents, the ref pulling him off for a full stoppage. This guy's not getting flatlined. Elizeu lands 2 or 3 more shots. Sean Strickland was clearly back in there, potentially recovering. Obviously, they land up the follow-up shots, and I do think that potentially changed the outcome, because when you look at his performance against Kamaru Usman drops the guy, and he immediately recovers, shoots the takedown, and when he shoots the takedown, he puts his head in a position to survive. That's what Colby Covington was trying to do in the 5th round against Kamaru Usman in their first outing. But Sean Strickland was able to do that. He was able to survive and actually made it to a decision. That was a young, prepubescent Sean Strickland. That was way, way long ago. He is much more improved. He'll tell you himself. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how Sean Strickland deals with such a massive takedown threat like Dricus Du Plessis. I do think Dricus Du Plessis will shoot in on early, because he has watched tape. His coach does seem pretty smart, and I think he knows what the takedown threat does for him. But if Dricus Du Plessis is going out there expecting to submit Sean Strickland in round 1, which I don't think he's expecting to do, I think he's looking for the TKO. He said it in a lot of his interviews, which I've been watching, just because I'm curious to see how they see the fight. I know Dricus Du Plessis is watching more film than Sean Strickland, because Sean Strickland recently said in an interview with Megan Olivi on ESPN MMA, Olivi, I don't know why I said it that way, that he doesn't watch any film. He just goes in there and fights, which is probably a good mentality. It probably puts some pressure off of him. But another fun thing to note is that Sean Strickland seemingly has the most success in his career when he takes fights on short notice. Now, that's not the case every single time, but against Nasruddin Imavov and Israel Adesanya, both of those performances were on short notices, and he won as an underdog. After that, I think he beat Abus Magomedov. That was a full camp, I do believe. I think that was like 2 months of notice, so that was easily a full camp. But it's just interesting to note that he does pretty well on short notice, and this is a full camp. So if you're on the Dricus Du Plessis side and you're on the whole superstition thing, maybe that's the case. But Dricus Du Plessis, excuse me, I keep saying Dricus Du Plessis when I mean to say Sean Strickland. But Sean Strickland looks like he is in such great shape right now. You look on his Instagram, he's gotten tight abs. Tight abs. And I look at Dricus Du Plessis, and I know that was a very weird segue. But I look at Dricus Du Plessis, and I look at him landing shots on Derek Brunson. Super clean, super powerful shots on the chin of Derek Brunson, who's been knocked out multiple times before. And I know Derek Brunson ruined the towel at the end of round 2. His team dead, and that's why that fight did end, and it is a TKO on record. But I want to see Dricus Du Plessis flatlining Derek Brunson, flatlining Brad Tavares in round 3 with the shots that he's landing in round 3. I know he rocked him in round 2, but with some of the shots that he's landing in round 3, Brad Tavares is barely even stunned. And it seems like maybe Dricus's pop does go away in the later rounds. Now, we don't see him in the later rounds all that often. And obviously, I'm very open-minded. If there are some fights in KSW or ESC that Dricus Du Plessis had where he had a lot of success in the later rounds that I haven't seen, because I haven't watched all those fights if I'm being honest, but I've seen all of his UFC career and his fights with Roberto Solic and a couple of them on the KSW scene. But ultimately, I haven't really seen him do anything that crazy in the later rounds outside of against Darren Till, who has horrible takedown defense. And I don't say basically gave up his neck, but I don't know. That was a very interesting performance because Dricus Du Plessis goes out there, dominates Darren Till in round 1, 10-8, easy. Round 2 comes around. Darren Till, I mean, I don't know if he really stuffed many takedowns, but when it was on the feet, he was landing the bigger shots. Eventually, he gets taken down by the end of round 2, and then round 3 comes around. Darren Till's landing massive shots. Dricus Du Plessis recharges his cardio, gets a couple of deep breaths, explodes into a takedown, finds a takedown, lands some big shots on Darren Till, and finds the submission. He did not look fresh, and I think if that's Sean Strickland in round 3, he stuffs those takedowns, and he lands the shots that could potentially knock out Dricus Du Plessis or just give him that round very, very clearly. I like Sean Strickland's durability. I do. In Dricus Du Plessis, I think his power might be a tad bit overrated. And I know that's kind of a crazy thing to say because Dricus Du Plessis goes out there, flatlines Trevin Giles. But Trevin Giles is now a welterweight. And Trevin Giles was sitting there with his hands down, not expecting that shot to come. Very clean shot from Dricus Du Plessis. I'm not trying to take away from that. But I think his power might be a tad bit overrated. Because if I'm going to look at him and just be so confident that he's going to flatline the guy like Sean Strickland, who is super durable, I want to see him finishing Brad Tavares with the punches that he landed. I want to see him finishing Derek Brunson with the punches that he landed. Let me bring up some of his other career fights. He landed some very solid shots. I said Brad Tavares already. And he's got good power. Don't get me wrong. He really got good power. He KO'd Robert Whittaker with a jab/weird hook thing. But I don't think Robert Whittaker has the greatest chin either. And I know that's kind of just like coasting around and I'm like being very nitty gritty. I think Dricus Du Plessis 100% has the power to beat Sean Strickland. Do not get me wrong. As I mentioned before, if I'm picking DDP, tune in tomorrow, I will be picking DDP by KO over Sean Strickland. I think he can land the big shots. I think Sean Strickland hasn't shown the ability to really defend multiple punch combinations off the back foot. And Dricus Du Plessis has the tools to put Sean Strickland on the back foot. But when Sean Strickland was on the back foot against Jared Cannonier, he's not complete dog shit. Does he have a great pull counter? Does he have great power off the back foot like Sean O'Malley? No. Fair enough. But that doesn't mean because you don't have a nice pull counter, because you're not a great counter striker, that you're horrible off the back foot. Sean Strickland off the back foot is good at rolling with punches, good at, stopping a lot of the strikes from his opponents. And he seems to switch stances a decent amount. We saw this against Jared Cannonier and land a lot of jabs. And I wanted to mention this too. Dricus Du Plessis has gotten hit by a lot of jabs. Marcus Perez was landing a lot of straight punches on Dricus Du Plessis before he got knocked down. He got flatlined. And credit to Dricus Du Plessis there. But then that fight reached, it was only round 1 for that one. Trevin Giles, I don't remember him landing too many jabs. He is a guy with a pretty solid jab, so he probably did. But when I was rewatching that fight, I didn't really see him land too many great straight punches. But outside of that, Brad Tavares landed a bunch of straight punches. A jab was working for him. When you go to his next fight against Darren Till landing a lot of straight punches. The straight left. And Darren Till was a southpaw, so that's fair enough. But Darren Till landing a lot of straight punches. His jab was working wonders. His straight left was working, which is obviously his rear straight. He was landing a lot of great punches on Dricus Du Plessis. Like he has shown that he can get hit by these straight punches. Robert Whittaker was landing the jab a lot as well, and that is one of Sean Strickland's best strikes. Against Derek Brunson, that was a very weird performance. If I was Sean Strickland, I would actually look into potentially shooting a takedown on Dricus Du Plessis to try and gas him out. I don't think he's going to. We know Sean Strickland. I don't think he's going to go out there, say this is going to be a war, and then go out there and look to nut hug him. I really doubt that's going to be the case, but I would think that would be very interesting to see how Dricus Du Plessis would deal with starting out some grappling exchanges in a 5-round fight, because I think in a 3-round fight, Dricus Du Plessis for me is the pick, no doubt about it. But in a 5-round fight, it gets so much more interesting because Sean Strickland, with his underrated chin, and I think he can get knocked out, I've said that multiple times, I'm sorry, can make it past round 3 and maybe get one of the first 3 rounds. Maybe really have a lot of success with that jab. And when it gets to rounds 4 and 5, I see those as pretty clear, pretty confident rounds in foresight that Sean Strickland will secure because he has the better cardio. He has some fantastic cardio. The only time we have seen him gas out through his career recently in a 5-round fight was against Nasruddin Imavov in round 5, where he took that fight on less than 2 weeks' notice. So I'm not going to fault that against him. I see people saying, hey, Nasruddin Imavov took a round off of Sean Strickland. He took that on short notice. He was pretty chubby there. But if anything we do know, it's that being in shape has helped a lot of guys' chins. Colby Covington has fantastic chin recovery, and he's always in great shape. Sean Strickland has already shown shredded abs ahead of his weight cut, so that's very impressive on his side. Let's go through some of other Sean Strickland's fights. I just wanted to break them down. Abus Magomedov is a guy that has a lot of power. I know Abus took him down and landed some big shots, but Sean was never really stunned that bad. He got hit with some big shots, dealt with them fine. Once again, the durability of Sean Strickland is being shown off. And I do think Dricus Du Plessis has some of the better power in this division. I just don't think it's on the level of Alex Pereira, and I'm not completely confident he's able to flatline Dricus Du Plessis. Fuck, man. Sean Strickland in one punch. I keep saying that, my bad. That's all I'm saying when I say Dricus Du Plessis' power may be a little bit overrated. And I do think Sean Strickland's chin's a little bit underrated, man. So it's interesting. It's very interesting. Abus Magomedov, he survived the round 2, and that has been his game plan in other fights. Just survive early against a guy that he knows doesn't have the greatest doesn't have the greatest cardio, and is very powerful and very kind of wild and reckless, like Dricus Du Plessis. In the Abus Magomedov fight, he said, well, I just wanted to survive early, and then I was going to knock him out later. And that's exactly what happened. And obviously, Abus Magomedov doesn't have as good a cardio as Dricus Du Plessis. But if Sean Strickland goes out there looking to survive early against Dricus Du Plessis and then pour on his volume, I could see him having a lot of success. What does confuse me, though, is sometimes people will be talking about Sean Strickland pushing this insane pressure and this insane pace, and I know he has a super disruptive style, and I couldn't agree with you more. But sometimes he's not pushing the pressure super hard against, maybe a Jared Kennedy or even against a Jack Hermanson. He's going out there, throwing a couple of jabs, allowing his opponent to circle back around, pressure him at times. Like, he's get pressured at times, and I think Dricus Du Plessis will 100% pressure him at times. I do think if I'm Sean Strickland, I'm going to try and just stay defensively sound. And I know this is a really annoying game plan to have as a fighter, but you got to survive. You really got to, just in the first round, you might have to fight a little bit like a pussy. You might have to be off the back foot, really shelling up, but you need to get accustomed to the speed of Dricus Du Plessis. I think Dricus Du Plessis is much more athletic, much more quick, and can find the big shot on you. So you would want to definitely see how it plays out. You got to work the jab, but you can't go out there getting over aggressive. I'd say my main thing from Sean Strickland, if I'm going to give you a game plan, if you don't want to shoot takedowns, which I don't really think you do, and I don't know how much that would benefit you because Dricus Du Plessis has been pretty proven on the ground, takes down Robert Whittaker, hurts him on the ground, as I have mentioned before, ends up, having success on the ground against Derek Brunson, reverses Trevin Giles, have success against him. There's other fights as well. Darren Till submits him in the 3rd round. So if I was Sean Strickland and I was giving him a game plan, I'm saying just don't brawl in the pocket, dude. That's all you don't need to do. Work the jab. Be super focused on your defensive fundamentals. And when you're going out there and trying to disrupt the strikes by putting your arms out like this, please make sure to pull them back to your face and be prepared for the longer combinations. That's all you got to do, man. And I know it sounds simple and it sounds super easy, and I'm making it sound easy. It's not easy. Dricus Du Plessis is a super gamed opponent who has all the tools to finish you early, and you have to be aware of that threat. And I'm scared because Sean Strickland does not watch film, and it seems like every single time he's talking about his opponent and his opponent's style, he oversimplifies it, and he kind of downplays the threat and doesn't really know what's going to come at him. He talks about Dricus, and he said, this is a wild man, just throws crazy hooks, and he's got good power, but he's like a wild banshee. That's exactly what he said. He's a wild banshee, and that might result in Sean Strickland trying to do the same thing he did against Abus Magomedov, and that's surviving and then having success later. And I think it's very possible that he can find a KO later, but I just do think that there is a world where Dricus Du Plessis goes out there and gets the first 3 rounds off of Sean Strickland because Sean Strickland is going to be looking to survive or being so threatened and so scared of the power from Dricus Du Plessis that Dricus gets the first 3 rounds, with Sean Strickland being a little bit too low of output. And then Sean Strickland is going to try and play catch up, and he might not have enough time, or he can potentially find the KO. And I do think Dricus Du Plessis has a very solid chin and a very solid ability that when he is gassed, as I mentioned before, to come in, power through, and just keep going. And when other opponents in the past have shot in on takedowns against Sean Strickland, they're able to stay into the clinch for a while. Sean Strickland doesn't really explode out of the clinch. Nasruddin Imavov was hurt at some point, shoots into the clinch, and then Dricus Du Plessis could potentially take advantage of that because he could hold on and really, get his cardio back, get in some nice breaths. But with the way that Dricus Du Plessis is talking about how he's going to go out there and he's clearly looking for the KO strictly against Sean Strickland, I do think that he may blow his load early. Pause. You feel me? But yeah, ultimately, the factors that I like on the Sean Strickland side is he has the better cardio. He's underratedly very durable. He's good at rolling with punches. And even when he's off the back foot, he seems to understand defense pretty well. Now, there are a lot of factors that I don't like about Sean Strickland's side. There's a lot of factors that I like on the Dricus Du Plessis side, which I would recommend going out and watching my video from yesterday. I think I did a pretty good job of breaking down the Dricus Du Plessis side and all these factors that you guys may not be considering or are considering, but how it could potentially play into the fight and what game plan I would go for if I was Dricus Du Plessis. Sean Strickland, underratedly very durable, has a better cardio, has nice straight punches and a nice teep to the body that could keep Dricus Du Plessis at range a lot. I think it's going to be a primarily striking fight, and there are going to be a lot of interesting factors that play into it. If Sean Strickland wins, I think it's going to be a late KO or he's going to win by decision. I don't see him being able to pressure the full way through, but I'm not going to rule it out of the realm of possibility because his style has been proven multiple times before to be very disruptive and bring a lot of his opponents a lot of issues. His coach is very smart and can give him a very smart game plan, but I mean, Sean Strickland doesn't seem like the smartest guy that's going to stick to like a perfectly set game plan. He's going to go out there and do a Sean Strickland thing, which could potentially lead to his own demise and potentially getting finished by Dricus Du Plessis. But what I'm saying right now, don't underestimate Dricus Du Plessis' cardio, don't underestimate his power, and just work on your defense early. Get the jab going, obviously, and you don't want to just shill off the back foot the whole time. You definitely do want to go out there and push your pressure at times, but pick your shots well. Do not get over aggressive because Dricus Du Plessis can explode off of the back foot. And when you're going out there, going with your unorthodox defense where you're going out there, putting your arms out, please bring them back to your face. And please be waiting for the longer combinations from Dricus Du Plessis. And when he shoots the takedowns, worry about exploding back up to the feet and worry about your submission defense. We saw Dricus Du Plessis go out there, land 100 strikes on Darren Till in round 1 and not be able to finish him on the ground. I'm not saying he's got pillow hands. I'm just saying Sean Strickland may have a solid enough chin to survive the early onslaught from Dricus Du Plessis. So I'll leave it there. If there's any factors you feel like I didn't mention, feel free to leave them down in the comments below. I'm open-minded. My prediction will be coming out tomorrow. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.